Hello, my name's Steve, and you are listening to the Go Footballing podcast. This is the show that talks all about grassroots football, whether you are a football coach, a player, parent, referee, or you've just got a love for the game. Sit tight, you are in the right place. So on the lineup today, we are going to be looking at respect within the grassroots football game. A number of things have happened this week, so I think it's really important for us to just address that one. And we've also got another part of the show, which was one that I always like, which is called On the Pitch. Before we get started, if you want to interact with us and you want to message in, you know the email address by now. It is gofootballingpod@gmail.com. That'll get straight through to us, and we'll also be talking about the things that you email in. So episode 6, here we go. So I think if you've been on any of the grassroots sites in the last couple of weeks, you'll have probably seen there's a number of videos that are going around which are showing probably a bit of a lack of respect within the grassroots game, especially from some of the younger ages. So yeah, just want us to do a quick podcast just regarding these aspects of the game, because they are the side of the game that I don't think anyone really wants. And I think if you look all the way through the comments and all the comment sections, doesn't matter which post you get on, they're all kind of saying the same things as well, which is we don't need this in the game, absolute embarrassment, all the rest of those kind of comments, just talking really about what they're experiencing from week to week when they're at games, but also what we saw on some of those videos too, which were quite horrific really, and not professional in any kind of way, but also not great for anyone. I don't think that would have been great for the referees. I don't think that's great for the players, for the coaches, and certainly parents too. So let's just talk about what we can do and where we're getting the respect from within the game and how we can maybe bring some of it back. So first off, let's talk about it from a referee's point of view. So many of you will know, especially if you listen to the previous podcasts, you'll know that not only am I a UEFA licensed coach, but I'm also a qualified referee. And I referee on a weekly basis. So, I see this right the way from open age groups to youth age groups. That's the top end of the scale as well. So under 15s, 16s, 17s and 18s. But I also sometimes do, just because the times of the days are really nice for these, is I do like the younger age groups too. So anything from like under 14s right the way down to under 8s. I really like all of those. And it's really nice. And sometimes you go and it's a really, really nice experience. But, from a point of view of a referee, and I think referees get a lot of stick. And I really think that they don't really deserve it. But a couple of things that we need to understand really for people that are in the game, and not everyone always understands these things, but if you've got a referee and they look fairly young and they are wearing a band on their arm, now in the county that I referee in, it's generally a red band they have, but I have seen some that have been wearing yellow and orange bands too on their arms. Basically means that they are under 18. So if they are under 18, they still fall under all the same safeguarding. So, if we are things like, if we're parents or coaches and we are shouting at these, just remember we're shouting at children here. And that's not acceptable in the game. And another thing for referees is that I've never known of a referee who has cheated on purpose. Like, there's just no purpose of doing it. If we see something, and not always are we going to be absolutely perfect. We're not always going to see every single touch of the ball before it goes out of play. We're not going to always get every throw in or kick in correct every single time. We're not going to get every 50-50 decision right all the time. But what we do is we try to control the game as much as we can to make sure that the game is fair and that no one gets hurt. A good game for me is always that no one gets hurt, everyone's happy at the end of the game. If I've got a little bit of heat from both sides of the team, probably know that I did an all right job. Likewise, if there's lots of handshakes and thanks refs afterwards, you generally know that you've done a good job afterwards. But I've never known a referee to turn up to a game and purposely think about cheating, especially if they're league appointed. Sometimes you may find that there's a bit of a bias from some parent referees that go on there, but just remember they're not really referees. They're just going on there to make sure and facilitate a game and make sure that the game can actually happen. You can always say this, if you've got a problem with the referees that are turning up, that are dads and mums that are going there, or older brothers, older sisters that are refereeing the games, especially in the younger age groups, and you're not happy with it, you can always go and take the course yourself. You can always go and do that, or you can volunteer yourself rather than shouting at those. But just remember, if you do see those with the referees with the armbands, they are going to be young referees, so they are going to still be learning the game. They won't have been watching it for as long as many parents. They'll still probably be playing in teams. They may be refereeing first thing in the morning and then playing in the afternoon, which I certainly know because I've been to games before where I've seen other referees that have been young with the bands on, and then I've gone to a game to referee and I've seen them on the pitch too. So, a lot of them will be doing both. Refereeing and also playing. But I think that we do need to have a bit more of a culture of supporting referees. I don't think it's always something that we need to do is just shout back on there and start having a go at the referees. I don't think that's always a good thing to do. I think that what we need to do is just be a bit more supportive and just let them referee the game. And we can just then, as parents, as coaches, as players, enjoy the game more. What I will say is to every parent that is listening or every coach is if you are shouting, "Oh, you ref," constantly saying something, it's not going to change their decisions for going forwards. They're not going to all of a sudden think, "Oh, now I've given 3 decisions and they've shouted at me, I need to do something else." And they're not going to think like that at all. Okay, and in fact, the more that you shout, it's probably just more distracting for them, and it's just going to make that game even harder for them to be able to manage. So yeah, we can just stay nice and quiet, let the referees referee, let the coaches coach, and parents, we can just do the thing of just encouraging the players on the pitch. Now let's have a look at it from, I wanted to get the referee one out of the way first really as well, because I think they're the ones that get a lot of stick. But let's also just quickly look at clubs, what clubs do to, make sure there is a level of respect around the clubs that they've got. I've never been to a club that hasn't had code of conducts. I haven't ever seen one that doesn't have coaches and coaching staff and other volunteers that are also safeguarding and safeguarding qualified. So they, know about all of these things too, which is great. I think that they all have good match day management. I've never really been to one that doesn't have that. That'll be things like respect ropes up, or sometimes you'll go and there'll be, physical barriers that are already put in place depending on the level that they're playing at. Signage, banners, all those things should be up too. So, take a good look at those and just remember that it's not the Premier League. They are children a lot of the time. And even the older age groups too. There's, again, no need to not have respect when we go to some of these games. And, all of them will monitor and manage, and the leagues are really good at generally monitoring and managing too. Some people have mixed opinions on those, but I've never really known of a county that's not been supportive or wanting to manage behaviour in some way. So let's get on to the players then next. They're the ones that are on the pitch. They're the ones that we're always watching. They're the ones that we turn up to go and see. So kind of respect from them. Well, I think that a lot of the time they'll get the respect in a number of ways, and it's the ways that they play are very much dictated on 2 things, really. I think that's the energy that they're getting from the coaching and the energy that they're getting from the sideline. I think that that's where they get most of it from. However, again, after games, always see handshakes, even if there's a little bit of argy-bargy in the actual game, which just needs to be stamped out pretty quickly. It is competitive for a lot of them, especially the older age groups. So sometimes it will be one of those things where that they're looking for a little bit of guidance from. They're looking for a little bit of guidance from the coaches, from the parents, and the energy that they're getting from around them. After a game's always gone on, especially with a lot of the younger age groups, they might be at the same schools or know of each other and played in the same teams, those kind of things. So there's less kind of problems with a lot of teams. And I think that a lot of the energy that they get, and the way that they play and the intensity of the game generally comes from the sideline. So where do we get that from? Well, let's talk about the coaches. I think that a lot of coaches, this is my absolute pet hate. I really get frustrated with coaches when I'm either coaching a team, when I'm on the sideline and I'm stood next to other coaches, and also when I'm a referee, is when they are just constantly shouting and screaming at their players constantly. Because the thing is with a lot of players is that they thrive under praise. So if you praise them, they'll probably run more. If you say, "Well done, great run," guess what? They'll probably do the same again. "Well done, great recovery run." They'll probably make another great recovery run from there. Whereas if you're just shouting at them, "What are you doing over there? Why are you there? What are you doing?" Generally, you're not going to get the same reaction from them. And I do think that players, they thrive under, and I think it's actually, there's probably been some tests and there's probably been some studies done on this too, about how players will actually thrive under praise as opposed to the negative energy that they'll be getting from the sideline too. So, absolute pet hate, and I hate it when coaches are screaming and it's almost borderline like abusive towards the players, especially when they're young, they're learning, they're going through a lot of different changes. They need to have, someone that's there that's going to be a bit of a guide to them during match day, during training, and just shouting constantly at them is really annoying. It's probably my biggest pet hate about grassroots football. So coaches, be more positive. And I think that's the way to really go. I've been to so many games where the coaches have just been absolutely barraging their players with, comments, and it's not been positive and it's been negative. And I just thought, why are these players even running for this coach? I don't even understand why. But likewise, if you've got an aggressive coach, and I've got an experience of this that I've had just a couple of weeks ago, that is very aggressive with their players on how they want to approach the game. Now, aggression's not always a bad thing, but it's how it's kind of applied and kind of how it's kind of taught into their players. But if players are on the sideline and they can hear their coach, and their coach is get straight onto them, do this, do that, and it's very, very aggressive, but it's also negative, like get in there hard, let them know where you are, all those kind of comments, that transpires onto the pitch very quickly. Now, what else transpires onto the pitch really, really quickly is how if coaches are all of a sudden talking to each other and they start arguing with each other, guess what? It goes onto the pitch. The rest of the players do that. So a couple of weeks I was refereeing under 17s. So two teams. One coach decided that one of the assistant referees that I'd got was putting his flag up for offside constantly, and none of them were offside. And it was turned into it's a borderline cheating. You're cheating. What are our players going to do with this? How are they going to learn? How are they going to be all right? And then it turned into an argument between the two coaches. Up until that point, I don't think I'd had to blow the whistle for a foul. I don't think I had. I might have done for some really, really minor kind of offence, but nothing major or anything like that. And it was actually quite settled. And the way that I always look at a game when I'm refereeing is, look, if you're charging in and you've got your studs up and we're making bad tackles, you'll hear the whistle. If you're playing nice football and the ball's moving quite nicely around the pitch and no one's making fouls, then you won't hear it. And up until that time where they started arguing, and this went on for maybe, let's say less than 5 minutes, about 5 minutes of your lino's cheating. How is he cheating? He's putting his flag. And they were just arguing backwards and forwards. And to be honest, what that happened in the game is within that 5 minute section, the energy from those coaches had come onto the pitch, and I probably had to make five. There was probably 5 offences, probably 5 fouls that were probably much worse fouls than what they would have been. So what I did, stop the game over to the coaches, and I just said, listen, coaches, a bit more respect. Your players are following what you're doing. You're arguing with each other, so now they're arguing with the team. Both sides round, so both stop it. Sent them both back to their dugouts. Luckily, it was one that had a physical barrier all the way around it, and also it had proper dugouts for the coaches to go back to as well. But they both went back. And by the time that I'd done that and said, lads, game back, respect, we've spoke about this at the start of the game, went back out, and there was no problems for the rest of it. In fact, there was one. There was one bad incident in there too, but that was just a one-off. It wasn't from the sidelines or anything like that. It was just a one-off. So yeah, coaches, that's where they get a lot of the energy. But this is where most of the energy comes from, and this is where most of the approval comes from players to behave badly. And this is from a lot of the videos that you see go around on things like Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, all of those kind of things. The energy comes from the sideline. It's coming from the parents, and over-competitive parents sometimes, where what they're shouting on the pitch and what they are shouting is, borderline abusive towards the referees, which needs to stop. And we don't have, that just needs to stop completely, really. Like I said earlier, no refs going there to try and cheat. There's no advantage for them to cheat. What are they cheating for? What are they blowing the whistle for? If they don't get something right, they've just not got something right. They're not doing anything wrong. But a lot of parents seem to think that they are a number of things, and sometimes this is where the energy comes from. And I think if we can just get a bit more respect here, and by the way, there are a lot of great parents. I've been to a lot of games recently as a referee, as a coach, and also just to go and watch, where I've seen great parents as well. So this is not all of them, but just the ones on the instances that you see that are bad. Generally, I think a lot of that energy is coming from the parents. They are the ones which are giving the whole, break his legs. What kind of comment's that? Well, why are we saying, why would parents shout that on? Make sure you hurt them, break their legs, take him out, all these kind of things. Why do we need to have that in the game? If you result into doing that, then why are you even playing? Don't result to that. If you want to be a good footballer, you don't see good footballers just go in with those tackles all the time. They're not the comments. You won't get a Premier League ref say, go in there, break his leg. That's just not what happens. So why are we doing that with children and encouraging children to hurt each other? I don't understand. And I think that is one thing that we do need to change within the respect of the game. to make it more positive environment for everyone else. So that's one of the things. I also think that energy and that approval does come from the parents too, a lot of the time. When you're hearing the loudest voices that are on the side, and they're coming from parents, and parents are willing to, cross that line of that respect rope and go onto the pitch to either confront a referee. And I've had some friends who are referees recently that have had to stop games because parents have come over and squared up to officials and squared up to them. So they've had to call the game off. And that's the right thing, If anyone did that to me in a game as well, it'd just be players go in, blow the whistle, game's off. It'll either be that or that parent can leave. When they're in the car park, then we'll resume the game. If they don't leave, then the game's going to be off. But I think that, sometimes you have to also appreciate that referees do know the rules, and that they do also know some of the rules that are more recent. And some of the people that are watching, maybe they think of a different set of rules. The amount of times that I've been shouted at by from the sideline for a goalkeeper having possession of the ball with one hand and someone screaming they need two hands, it is pretty much like that. Used to be almost weekly at one point, until you can just explain very quickly where you can go and look for that as well, by the way. I'll fill that in next episode. But I think that if they have the acceptance on the sideline that it is negative, and they have a negative attitude of, being able to cross the line and, cause problems and shout abuse on, that's terrible. And, I've known of 16-year-olds that have refereed a game that have been followed to a car park by, several parents shouting abuse at them. And, if that was in any other setting, that'd be absolutely terrible. So how do we get out of this? So how do we get out of all these this negativity? Well, one is we need to follow the code of conducts that the clubs have got. We need to make sure that we are monitoring and managing any bad behaviour, so we can stamp that out nice and quickly and let it know that it's unacceptable within the game. We need to make sure that we stay behind things like respect ropes. We need to make sure that we've got a bit more respect for the referees, that the messages that we're shouting onto the pitch are more positive, and they're all about praise, because that's how the players are going to, respond in a more positive way. And if things don't quite go right, just remember it's just a game, okay? So we just have to remember that it is just a game. But I think that, as a quick podcast this week, I think we're going to leave it there for respect. But, do email in and just let us know your stories of respect that you've got in the game, about how, honestly, I'd really like it if some people could message in and just give me the positives that you've had, of how you've maybe turned things around or how things have gone really, really well. By adding some things into your club that have worked well, and maybe I can talk about those, and maybe someone else can take those good measures that you put in or good practices that you're using, so we can get the whole respect back into grassroots football. So very, very quickly then, just before we do end, this is on the pitch. This is the little bit that either happens on the pitch that maybe you don't always hear about. Sometimes it's the little conversations that are happening. Maybe it's the silly little things that are happening within football. So this is what happened to me 2 weeks ago. No football this week. It's half term for a lot of people as well, so no football at all. However, I was refereeing. My last game that I refereed was a cup game, and I think that seemed like there were cup games everywhere. I saw a lot of penalties being taken, and a lot of penalty shootouts. So on a lot of social media. So I'm guessing that a lot of people also played cup weekend. Well, I was refereeing. Game started off quite nicely, apart from, first 5 minutes, keeper came out and ended up getting a yellow card for taking a striker out just outside the area. However, passed the attitude test massively as well. I'm really sorry, committed, overcommitted. I know I clipped him. It was outside the area. I won't do it again. All the rest of it, really, really nice. However, so we've got two teams, and we're halfway through the first half, and all I've got is ref. And now it's quite common as well. You're hearing the coaches shouting ref. So, wait till the ball goes out. I always say to the players beforehand, if you want to talk to me, that's absolutely fine. Talk to me, just do it nice and respectfully. We can always do that in a game. Just try and do it in a dead ball situation. So the ball's out for a throw, it's a goal kick, it's a free kick, whatever, corner, try and talk to me then, because then I'm not trying to look at my watch or trying to give you the time or doing something else. I'm actually watching the game, which is what I should be doing. So yeah, the ball goes out and I turn around and he goes, he ain't got any shin pads in. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, someone's come on the pitch and they've got no shin pads on. Went over to the lad that they were all shouting, he's got no shin pads in, he's got no shin pads on. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's got those tiny ones in. Went over to him and I was like, have you got shin pads in? And he just looked at me and went, no. What have you got in there? I can see you've got something. Put an extra pair of socks in. He forgot his shin pads, so he just thought, I'll put an extra pair of socks in. So, honestly, I had to send him off. Obviously, it's rolling subs, under 18, so it's, again, rolling subs as well. So, over to him. Coach, he ain't got no shin pads on. He can't come back on until he's got them in. So they had to keep on rotating shin pads for the rest of the game as well. So that's a little bit of on the pitch this week as well. Absolutely got grassed up by the other team for not having shin pads on. But, coaches, come on now. Make sure your players have got everything that they should have. No jewellery on. Make sure they've got no hats on. Make sure they've got shin pads on too. So that's it for On the Pitch this week. So that is the end of the show. Don't forget you can always email in if you want to. That is just gofootballingpod@gmail.com. And we will see you very shortly for episode 7.